It's always great to be the last presenter. I'm sure you're hoping to go through this really quickly. I'm going to try and actually keep it relatively top level and simple, just want to give you a flavor and actually want to get you a little bit excited about what we do as a company and what we have as an opportunity. There are a lot of words on this slide, but let me summarize it this way probably. We are, for all intents and purposes, an oil and gas services company. We're a high-tech services company, but we offer information. We don't sell technology. We actually sell our customers information about their leaks and emissions particularly, and then we combine that information about their emissions with other information such as imagery of their facilities, topography of their facilities, access to those facilities, and so on. In the end, what we do with this information, we combine it and we call it business intelligence. We tell them how to operate their assets and how to extract the most of their assets and protect their assets. We can operate in a variety of markets. The only one I want to talk about today actually is hydrocarbon industry or the oil and gas sector. So within that market, if you think about gas emissions, and you can call them leaks or you can call them emissions, there's a distinction between those two, but let's call them emissions for now. Their problems and their emissions that have to be monitored anywhere starting from the wellhead to all the gathering pipelines that transport this product to facilities that process it, those facilities themselves, the pipelines that transport it over long distances afterwards, and then the end processing and distribution of those products to the end customer. On the gas side, of course, you have the distribution networks to each city and to each house. On the liquid hydrocarbon side, you're talking about gasoline stations and other refineries and so on. So there's a broad spectrum of niche markets or particular operating parts of the oil and gas sector that we can sell our data into. And of course, there are a lot of different companies that operate in those individual niches. The one that I want to point out, since there's a lot of exploration talk in this particular room, we can also apply this technology as an exploration tool. We could actually look at microseepages from oil and gas reservoirs. Last year, we announced a project that we did with Geological Survey of Canada and the Mackenzie Delta looking for microseepages from oil and gas or from methane hydride deposits in the delta under the permafrost, which was quite an interesting project. There's a lot going on there in terms of Canadian government looking for certain opportunities in exploration. There's not a lot of private exploration, unfortunately, but it could be applied for looking for seepages from oil and gas reservoirs. So just wanted to plant that seed. The primary market out of this larger pie, however, are pipeline companies or pipeline assets. We are, in effect, deploying over pipelines and looking for these leaks and emissions, both for natural gas, but as well for oil pipelines. Together, they combine to about $400 to $500 million that's currently spent in finding these leaks worldwide. And if you expand that to the other niche markets that I talked about, you look at well over $1.6 billion. So it's a large addressable market that we are looking at. So how do we do this? It's all having that marketing perspective and what our services really try to target. How do we do it? It sounds simple now looking in retrospect, but looking back, we actually bought some intellectual property from the Canadian Space Agency. Back in the 1990s, they spent about $40 million to build a space instrument called MOPET that was launched in 1999 on a NASA satellite. And this instrument was measuring carbon monoxide and methane from orbit, globally looking at greenhouse gas emissions, how do they move around, and what does it mean for the world. We bought that technology. We spent $16 million to date to commercialize it effectively and adapt it so we can fly in a helicopter. Sounds simple enough, but it's certainly a lot of work. It took us 10 years to get here. In 2010, we actually finally commercialized this and started offering services. This camera, though, it's in effect an infrared camera that's mounted on a helicopter looking down at the ground. As we deploy this camera over an asset, if you think of a pipeline, in one flyover or in one pass, we cover 210 feet, 64 meters. And if anywhere within that 64 meters we have any emissions of methane or other hydrocarbons, we draw a map of the plume. And I'll show you what that actually looks like in a minute. So that's simply looking at how our system or what actually our technology looks like. But what I did mention also at the top is that we provide a service. We do not sell this gadget, but rather we sell the data that we collect with the gadget. And our data, or the information that we sell to our customers, allows them, again, to operate their facilities more efficiently. And the other thing to point out in this particular slide is we do not operate the helicopters, we simply lease them on a case-by-case basis. So why are we doing this? And why actually, we could have deployed in environmental markets, we could have deployed in military markets, we could have deployed in all sorts of other applications. So why did we choose oil and gas? For a variety of reasons, but particularly because they have a massive need and they have very antiquated methods of fulfilling those needs nowadays. And you can, this is a bit of a metaphor, but we are effectively replacing a walking survey, which is what a lot of times is done with a state-of-the-art way of doing it. We can detect similar leaks, but at the same time do it a lot more efficiently. So without going into a lot of details about why our customers are buying our services and why they want to replace the old way of doing things, I'm just going to highlight 3 things. And unfortunately, the time we have, you have to take my word for it. We can talk afterwards and explain you why exactly these things are. We are the only company in the world that actually provides guaranteed coverage of the pipeline right away. Believe it or not, every other technology that anybody can deploy in a pipeline cannot guarantee that they're actually going to find their leaks. We can. We also have the most accurate leak location and quantification of any technology that exists. And we have the highest probability of leak detection because of the combination of those first 2 factors. So when we sell our services to a pipeline company, these 3 factors play the major role in providing that comfort to them and the impetus to buy our service. So here's an example of what a customer gets. And this is we fly thousands and thousands of miles, but this is a snapshot of maybe 2 kilometers. And what you see here is a road somewhere, and this I think is somewhere in rural Alberta. And there was a leak from a facility just off the pipeline, which is the yellow line you see. And we are the only technology in the world that images the plume the way you see it here. And those are false colors. The gas is actually not visible to the naked eye. But it looks effectively like smoke coming from a smokestack, except our technology can quantify it and visualize it, and we paint a plume. You can clearly see which way the wind blows that gas plume towards the north. So it's a significant difference and advantage that we have to others. So let's look at how we're going to make money. So first of all, from a business model point of view, it's actually relatively simple. We sell a service, and we sell a service based on linear kilometers. A customer wants us to fly 10,000 miles. It's 10,000 miles times X, and that's your price. The X in this particular case is a service charge of $70 per kilometer. This is on average what we charge our customers. It's a pretty low number, but there are 5 million kilometers of pipeline in the world, so the number adds up really quickly. Out of that, we have to fly our technology in a helicopter, so our biggest cost is a helicopter provider, about $22 a kilometer. Our internal cost to deliver the service and do all the data analysis is very small, about $4 a kilometer. And for every single instrument that we build and deploy, right now we operate just one, we can survey with it about 65,000 kilometers per year. That will translate in about $4.5 million worth of revenue. And we just released our financial statements for last fiscal year. You can actually start to see some of these gross margins. But the gross margin that we anticipate is over 50%. So it's actually a very profitable business. And the other thing to keep in mind about the service that we offer is that it is a recurring annual survey that these pipeline companies have to perform. So once we capture a customer, that's an annual ongoing service we have to provide. What we accomplished to date, I did mention that we had our initial service offering hit the market about 3 years ago. We have sold over 15 contracts to over 10 pipeline operators, and I'll have a list of them in a minute. And last fiscal year, we are a small fish. We're still a young company. We're just starting to get some significant traction in the market. Last year, revenue was about $650,000. And that's been following, that's a third year of revenue, and it's been increasing significantly since we started, and we expect that to grow significantly this year. If you look at potentially where this company could go, last year we flew roughly 15,000 kilometers. This year we anticipate to do a lot more than that. But if you fast forward to 2015, for example, and you can do some math in terms of what revenue that would mean, on 300,000 kilometers of pipe that we expect to capture, to put that in perspective, if you think of a company like TransCanada Pipelines, El Paso, Kinder Morgan, ATCO Pipelines even, some reasonable names, if you take those 5 companies that I mentioned, you add them all together, you end up with that. So although it sounds like a lot of kilometers, it's actually not, because a lot of pipeline companies are quite large and they have a lot of network. So that's an idea of where the company can go. Our market cap right now is just under $20 million. We still have 45% insider ownership. One of our largest shareholders is Mr. Paul Van Eden, who owns just about 20% of the company. And here's a list of some of the marquee customers that we have signed. We announced just recently a new contract, a new customer that we signed, which we didn't release the name of, but they're the largest oil producer or heavy oil producer in Canada. And so this list keeps growing quite significantly. And that's really just a quick summary of where we are and where we're going. Thank you.